It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Monday? We do. You do. From the Dixie Line Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, coming off a great sports weekend, we welcome you to our Monday bonus podcast. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host, broadcasting from left field, dressed like that, John Riley. We welcome you to our Monday bonus sports podcast. This podcast brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego, and the new one that's in Dana Point. If you've got projects, they've got materials. If you want ideas, they'd be glad to help you. Build it, fix it. We guarantee you will enjoy it in 2025, thanks to your best friend, Dixie Line Lumber. John Riley, good afternoon. Man, we flip coins in the air. We got so many different topics on the table. We're going to talk hoops, then we're going to talk baseball because the season's about to begin, and we survived NFL free agency. Man, there's a lot to talk about.
Well, you know, the two best months in the sports world are March and October, and we're right in the thick of it, man.
Yeah. And we're going to go a lot of different directions. Just a couple of business notes before we get started. For those of you who might be new to the live stream, new to the podcast, we put topics on the table because we do sports talk the way it should be done. And then we turn around and we open it up to what we call Fans Forum. Your chance to pick a topic, state an opinion, ask a question, take a shot if you wish. Fans Forum. John, how does it work? Where do people go to get involved?
Okay. We had the bumper music to start. It was on repeat. Sorry about that, guys. We were trying to turn that off. Okay, so Fans Forum, your chance to get involved, ask a question for Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, anything in the world of sports, March Madness, baseball, NBA, WNBA, we got it all here. Type in your question or comment in the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube, and we'll get you involved.
If you like sports, I write about sports. In addition to doing this podcast, I write about sports on this website. Unbelievable amount of information and opinion on March Madness on my website. It's leehacksawhamilton.com. Right there on the internet. Just punch it up. You'll be able to read it within 5 minutes. You'll know everything there is in the world of sports. Also, when you go to the homepage of that website, there's an orange box. Want you to join Hacksaw's Insiders Group, and we email you all kinds of special information. We want you to join me on social media on X. My handle is at Hacksaw1090. Or you can just type in Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, hit the follow button. Therefore, when I put something up on X, and I do that quite often, you'll be able to read it. Want you to share, tell everybody who we are, where we are, Mondays and Thursdays at 1:30 p.m. Want you to subscribe on the YouTube channel, because when you do that, you also get instant notification every time you put something up new on the YouTube channel, which is all hours of all days of the week. So we go in a lot of different directions on a lot of different social media platforms. John, are you ready? Because this is going to be an information-packed show.
Yeah, first of all, are you wearing green today? I mean, I can't see it.
Totally forgot. Not enough hours in the day to do all this.
Lee O. Hamilton. Okay, let's get started here talking about March Madness, the number 1 seeds.
Do you have one of these? I want you to get one of these with a big eraser so you can fill out your brackets and then make corrections after you make mistakes.
Yeah.
Let's talk March Madness. How cool is this tournament? This may be the most diverse year of college basketball I think I have ever seen. We had 7 different teams that were number 1 for large chunks of the season, and then we had a myriad of upsets, near upsets in the conference tournament play. At the end of the day, the number 1s are the number 1s, and that's a pretty good collection of number 1s. That number 1 could have been Auburn. Number 1 could have been Duke. Number 1 could have been Houston. Number 1 turned out to be Florida. It could have been anybody else, including what I tend to think might be the most dangerous team in the bloody tournament, St. John's and Rick Pitino. But I'll tell you what, the top seeds and the second seeds are really impressive, because the second seeds include a really good Alabama team and a Tennessee Volunteers team that was pretty explosive. And obviously the St. John's Red Wave, and the other number 2 team is all things Tom Izzo and Michigan State. So this is going to be so much fun to see where this thing goes going forward. best first-round games because I love 8-9 matchups. I know there's going to be some shockers along the way. But how about in the South Regional? 8-9, Louisville versus Creighton, which has gotten better and better as the years gone on. In the Midwest Regional, you got Gonzaga, Georgia, an 8-9 matchup there. Now, granted, this is not vintage Gonzaga basketball, but they're pretty doggone good. And then amongst the other really tough matchups in the West, number 7, Kansas, Bill Self. Number 10, Arkansas, John Calipari. How cool are those first-round big boy matchups? Now, there are going to be some other really interesting games, some really tough games along the way. Amongst the other games you pay attention to, UCLA, Mick Cronin against Utah State. That's kind of a weird matchup. That's big-time basketball against a wannabe. St. Mary's has played so well this season. Are they equal to playing somebody in the Southeastern Conference? They're going to play them. We're talking about Vanderbilt. You got Colorado State, which was a shocker, winning the Mountain West Conference tournament. They got to go play Penny Hardaway and all things Memphis State. I just think there's some really cool games in the first round of the tournament. Now, there are going to be some blowouts along the way. I pity Nebraska, Omaha. Who? They're going to have to look across the floor and see all things Rick Pitino. I don't think that's going to be real easy. I pity whoever wins a play-in game between Alabama State and St. Francis of Pennsylvania, because they have to go play number 1 seed Auburn right out of the get-go. But, think about the ones that have gotten there for the first time ever. Grand Canyon College, or Grand Canyon University now, is there. Southern Illinois, Edwardsville. Who? SIUE. They've gotten to the tournament. Wofford's Terriers are in the tournament. So it is so cool because you got the marquee blue bloods, you got the wannabes who are hot, and you got the guys that are just, wow, we're excited we're going to be there. So we got all things March Madness to talk about. And then we got to talk about the question marks. I almost lost it. The NCAA, Bubba Cunningham, the head of the committee, just went on national TV and said, we have these standards and we have these rules and these regs, and we followed it. We followed it to a T. Please explain to me how North Carolina, with a 1-12 record in quad 1 games, who got bounced out of their own tournament, gets into March Madness. 1-12 against the best of the competition. How do they get in? Well, the West Virginia Mountaineers had 6 quad 1 wins and 10 conference wins in a pretty tough conference, Big 12, and a pretty tough travel conference for West Virginia. They got snubbed. Indiana, 5 quad 1 wins, even though they fired the coach. They got snubbed along the way. So I'll tell you, there's a lot of people really peeved at the selection committee for their rationale as to why North Carolina, which once upon a time had a great legacy, is in, and some other guys who played really well, deserved to get in, did not get in. So, John, I threw a lot of stuff at you. Here's the pencil with the eraser. You can fill out your brackets, but you can make changes if you wish. Let's just go forward here. Agree with the number 1 and 2 seeds? Pretty cool cross-section of marquee teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I like those teams. And, I always kind of keep an eye on Auburn because Baker Mazar used to be here at San Diego State. Keep an eye on Kentucky, although I don't think they're one of the top 2. They're probably a little further down.
Yes.
Keeping track of our Aztecs, but I think they seeded it well.
Yeah. Best first-round game? Anybody 8 versus 9 to me is just, that's even Steven as it can get. And I think Louisville Creighton is going to be really fun to watch. And I'll tell you what, Kansas, Arkansas, taking no survivors in that one. That's going to be a good first round game too.
Yeah, always lots of good games here. And, it's always there's a 12 that beats a 5 and 11 that beats a 6. So you try to find those spots as well. But I got to go back to this idea that, every year there's guys that get snubbed, right? It's always talking about it.
Not in your case when you want to expand the bloody thing to 96.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that we need to expand it. And then teams like North Carolina can get it. But then, we will be snubbing some really low tier teams. And I think that would make it even better.
So that is interesting there. Are you as offended about this whole North Carolina storyline as everybody else is? Because the whole country, college officials, guys in the NBA are barking about this. Why would the committee make that decision and allow a team that was 1-12 in quad one games to get in?
Well, it smells bad. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And you know, prior to us getting started on the podcast, I was in the drive-through at In-N-Out Burger in Carmel Mountain Ranch. You actually smelled my burger when you rolled in. Anyways, I was listening to Chris Ello, and he made an interesting point on 97.3. He said that the all this focus on North Carolina, you don't deserve to be here. You guys are, you guys are getting the favoritism from your AD. Well, that's only going to motivate them to play even better to prove that they belong. And who are they playing? The San Diego State Aztecs.
So that's where we are. You're into college basketball, March Madness. Shoot a three-point shot. I will allow those of you who shoot air balls to be part of the fans forum. Jump on board. Like what you saw? Do you dislike this North Carolina storyline? We kind of covered it from a lot of different angles on the basketball court, and we're not done.
Well, I want to ask you another question, if you could, about the overall bracket. 12 teams from the Big 12 made it. Or yeah, 14. The SEC, excuse me, from the SEC, right?
14 from the SEC.
And so how many teams are in the SEC?
It's 18.
18. I mean, that's incredible. Because I remember when I first started following college basketball was in the 80s, and that was the era of the Big East. Yes. And then it became the ACC for like 2 decades. And I remember the ACC used to get 6 or 7 teams in, and we were all aghast. Well, they had 14 out of 18 in the Big 12, or excuse me, the SEC. And by the way, the SEC never used to be this good in basketball a long time ago.
SEC used to play football, right?
Yes, exactly. The only team that was any good in the SEC was Kentucky, and it may be one of the Florida schools.
Transfer portal has changed everything in college basketball, and there's money in the SEC. Now is obviously basketball dollars in the SEC.
Yeah.
That's why all these teams have gotten pretty good. Yeah, 14 in the SEC, which is really hard to believe. Okay, next topic. We're talking hoops.
We're talking hoops. How about talking about San Diego State and the UCSD Tritons?
All right, let's talk about the Aztecs. They get in. First time ever. And I hate to say this because it comes off negative. San Diego State has to be like Norfolk State or Johnson C. Smith. They have to go participate in a play-in game.
Austin P.
Yeah. So how have they slipped?
Right.
But this is an aberration of a year. But they're going to have to go play the aforementioned North Carolina. It's going to be an enormous challenge for the Aztecs because Carolina is ACC big-time basketball. Great guard in Davis. Huge issues there. But in terms of San Diego State, Guath will play. What I think is really unfortunate, almost to the point of being unfair, they had to get back on a plane today to go to Dayton to play tomorrow, rather than taking a West Coast team, giving them an extra day for the long travel and have them play on Wednesday in a play-in game. Yeah, I think that's a bit of an issue. Enormous challenge for Brian Dutcher and a brilliant coaching staff. They had one full practice, not knowing who they were going to play. Then they found out they're playing North Carolina. So at a walkthrough meeting, they're going to have one private walkthrough practice in Dayton and one extra film session to watch Carolina. But they're going into this with their eyes closed because there's not a lot of time to put stuff in. And they're going into this with Guath wearing a heavy knee brace. And I don't know how many minutes he's going to play and how he's going to stand up, but they think he's ready. And they did all the maintenance they could to protect the young man not getting injured. They do think he's good to go. How many minutes he goes remains to be seen. So San Diego State becomes a play-in basketball team. I never thought in modern day times I'd have to use that phrase to compare them to Norfolk State or whatever. And then Guath he'll play, but who knows how far he goes. I guess a pointed question, considering how really badly they played the second half of the season and how they got punched in the mouth by a bunch of teams, they really deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. You tell me. Go ahead.
Don't go there. I mean, they deserve to be in there, but they've lost their best player, for the last 6 games.
Yeah, but they were playing up and down, in and out, schizo basketball prior to Guath getting hurt.
Well, they were, but I mean, if you were to give those 3 losses to when Guath was out and put them in the win column, we'd be singing a different tune right now. So you got to be happy for the Aztec kids. They get to go. You got, guys like Nick Boyd. They don't want to, they came here for a reason, and you want to fulfill the promise to guys like Pharaoh Compton that could have gone elsewhere, came to San Diego State. Hey, we get to the tournament, and here they are. But of course, it's North Carolina. And I don't care, if people say they were 1-12 in the quad one, it's North Carolina. Yep. They're going to have like all American players on their team. It's going to be a tough go. And the whole world is going to be wanting the Aztecs to win.
Yep.
And so there's a lot of unique emotion. It's almost, remember that one year when the second round they had to play Florida Gulf Coast?
Sure.
And the whole nation seemed to be against the Aztecs. But it's a fun opportunity to go against the blue blood. And I'll tell you what, if Magoon Gwath puts in like 25 minutes, maybe, boy, they can make a big difference, because I guess North Carolina's got bigs, but they're explosive offensively. So we've got to be at the top of the game.
And the weird aspect of the whole North Carolina thing is, about a month ago, there was talk that Hubie Davis might not be the coach of the future, that maybe they should just jettison him because it's been such a rocky road. Now, calmer heads prevailed there in Chapel Hill, and they didn't hit the eject button or inform him you're done at the end of the season. But at the end of the day, this is not vintage North Carolina basketball at all. So we got SDSU, North Carolina, play-in game on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
I'm having a tough time putting my arms around the fact that Aztecs are a play-in team.
Well, yeah, they get a chance. They're in the dance. And that's, remember, your old buddy AJ Smith, the general manager, said that. Just get into the playoffs. So here they are.
UCSD is in 30-4. Phenomenal season. They're going to get the chance to play. But now they're not playing in the Big West Conference. They played nobody of big-time note, but they won 30-4 because that is collectively a really complete basketball team with all types of players, all types of skills, little bit of grit, and not afraid to move the basketball around. But they got to play Michigan. They got to play Michigan with all of its five-star recruits. Michigan, which got to the championship game of the Big Ten Conference and is playing much better basketball now than they were earlier in the season. I don't know if they have a chance in this one. They're going to have to hit threes, I think, to be the great equalizer. But what a congratulations. What Eric Olin has done on the Hill, you have the right, being a UCSD graduate, might have taken you 7 years to get through there. You have a right to be a pompous-ass Triton fan.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
But the offer expires at midnight tonight.
Oh, it's a 12-5 matchup, and this is where the fun happens in this tournament. I mean, I can't emphasize how historical this is for UC San Diego to be Division I in the first place and to win the conference and be in the bracket against Michigan.
Of all people.
And you're like, what? We were playing at Harvey Mudd, Claremont Colleges, Biola University. We were playing just with all due respect to those schools, tiny religious schools and research institutions that had like maybe 600 total students, and UCSD at the time had like 10 to 12,000 when I was there. So we usually had a pretty good squad for D3, but we were D3 and no one cared. No one cared about sports at UCSD. And then it got crazier because the students and the professors were sort of pompous about the fact, oh, we don't want those Division I full scholarship, athletic ride guys here. We're an elite academic university. We don't need any of that. And here I am. I'm a student and I love sports. And it was like my one regret about that school. It was a great school in every single category, except we were like a very low D3 school. And to see them 20 years or however many, it's almost 30 years since I graduated. My God.
Since I asked you to leave.
Yeah. Well, not 30 years. I'm doing my math. I'm all goofed up. Like 40 years. I graduated in 87. So the fact that they're in this bracket to play, the team that was the Fab Five, it's just mind boggling. And then what was it? One of the guys on CBS was saying that he thought that they could get to the Sweet 16. He saw this Tritons upsetting Michigan and then Yale in the next round.
In the battle of the Ivy League baccalaureates in the second round.
Yeah, right. They have a scoreboard of, Nobel prizes. So this is just insane what this represents.
Okay. Please, those of you watching on live stream, just remind him that the offer to be a pompous-ass Triton graduate expires at midnight tonight.
Well, if they win, if they beat Michigan, I'm going to be like floating on the ceiling.
You'd be more unbearable than you are, and you're pretty bleeping unbearable at times. Let's talk women's basketball. Congratulations, Lady Aztecs.
Yeah.
Holy cow, what a great season they put together. They have every combination of bigs, speed, skill, defense. And I love the coach's philosophy, we over me. Share the basketball. And the Lady Aztecs have had a phenomenal run, and they're in the tournament. That being said, when they look across the floor, they will see Mulkey. They will see LSU. They will see Kim Mulkey's phenomenal program. She's got 4 NCAA rings in her career, and the Lady Aztecs are going to play the Lady Tigers. Kim Mulkey's record is 119-19 since she went to Baton Rouge. What an enormous challenge for her. And UCSD's women came from nowhere to win the Big West tournament, and they're going to play a play-in game against Southern University of Louisiana in their first time ever. So both the men and women of both these schools, all 4 of them are playing basketball this week, and I don't think anybody's thought that was humanly possible, but hey, congrats to Lady Aztecs and obviously the Lady Tritons.
Yeah, this is historic on that level too. 4 teams from San Diego, and it's never happened. And, you know, back when the Tritons were D2 and D3, you know, I adopted San Diego State as my athletic program that I cheered for because they were the D1 school. But back in the 90s, you know, no one made the tournament. I mean, nobody in San Diego. You were just happy if like Southern Cal or USC made it, you know, or UCLA. So fantastic. All 4 of them are there. I mean, you got to root for the local team, but Kim Mulkey is just a tremendous person, you know, and I love watching her. She's like one of the first kind of flamboyant coaches out there on the, you know, wearing these really just wild outfits. And I love everything about her. I think she's fantastic.
Lady Aztecs have to play a team that's 119-19 under this head coach. Holy cow, is that going to be a hard night at the office?
Yeah, it's going to be tough, you know, but what a great experience for them. I mean, it's going to be wonderful. And hey, you know what? We had a 16-1 in the men's tournament a few years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So all things NCAA March Madness, Fans Forum chat box is open. We do sports talk the way it should be done. We put topics on the table. We express opinions about the topics on the table. And when we're done, you take over this podcast and tell us what you think. All things go March Madness. One last basketball topic before we get to halftime.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about the Suns, Tots, and the WNBA-HATRED.
Yeah, obviously there's about 12 to 15 games left in the NBA season, and everybody's excited that the Lakers broke their 4-game losing streak by battering a 17-50 Charlotte Hornets team. Everybody's excited in LA. I don't know what the hell they're thinking. They got big games to play. This is an interesting week for the LA Lakers. They still don't have LeBron back. And they're playing some big boys again this week. Big boys that caused them to lose 4 in a row the last week or so. The other big story in the NBA is I am waiting for an implosion. The Phoenix Suns thought they were putting together a new dream team under the new owner, Matt Ishbia. And they went out and they stockpiled all this talent and they traded all these draft picks away, and they're miserable. And the performance they put on against the Lakers on the weekend was just an absolute horror show. I thought the hiring of Mike Budenholzer as head coach, he had great success, got a ring in Milwaukee with the Bucks. I thought, and he'd done well in Denver prior to that, I thought this guy's going to come in, he's going to rally this thing with his format. These guys don't play a lick of defense, and worse, it's like they don't care. They were down 30 points in the first half to the Suns. Kevin Durant looks lost out there. It looks like he woke up as an old man. At one point, he was 1 for 9 shooting and not playing a lick of defense at the other end of the floor. The place just looks it feels like a toxic waste dump, what Phoenix Suns basketball has become. So they got enormous problems there. The other storyline in pro basketball is the WNBA. The union has stepped up in front of Caitlin Clark and has just gone public and said to all their clients, all their players in the NBA, end it. Stop it. There's no rationale for it.
Yeah.
All this jealousy about Caitlin Clark. And the union put out a statement. Do you know since Caitlin Clark's arrival, TV ratings are up 115%? Do you know since Caitlin Clark's arrival, attendance has gone up 47%? Do you know since Caitlin Clark signed, average salaries in the league have gone up 29%? And do you know there have been 4 expansion teams given, which means many, many more jobs to other players since Caitlin Clark arrived? Cease and desist with the stupid comments, the snubs, just the terrible treatment of a great player who's meant an awful lot to the league in just one calendar year. So do you have any plastic gloves? You want to put them on before you talk about the Phoenix Suns and the toxic dump that place has become? And put your helmet on if you can fire a shot at everybody in the WNBA. But go ahead, John. Yeah, the podium is yours.
The toxic dump in Phoenix. Isn't it weird how teams try to figure out what the right formula is to have a success?
Dream team.
There's dream teams. Then there was, the 3 guys, it was MJ and Pippen and Dennis Rodman. There was always 3. But, granted, teams like Lakers, Showtime had a lot of, role players that kind of filled in the gaps. But then it seems that fails frequently when, we got James Harden and you got, and you got
Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. Yeah. And what happened in Brooklyn over there, when they were trying to get all the stars together, it doesn't work. But Oklahoma City's not doing it that way. Young kids, though.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing is I think they're finding a different formula, a different strategy on how to beat these superstars because they've got the right kind of young guys to make it fit.
That in Houston, I concur with you. And in Cleveland is the unique mix. I mean, they're 56-11. That's the best team in the NBA that nobody's talking about. Everybody's talking about the Lakers, or some people still reveling in what the Boston Celtics got accomplished. But, those guys in Cleveland are pretty good. But Phoenix, what? Just bad chemistry. And so you got new owners flashing his dollar bills coming in the door. He's going to change everything. And look what he's got. He's got a toxic waste dump on his hands with contracts he can't trade.
Yeah, it's bad.
And a coach he hired who's a failure right now that they're not listening to. It's absolutely stunning. Go ahead. Ladies' line is open. You got a comment on Caitlin Clark and why this is still going on.
Well, the reunion's right. I mean, Caitlin Clark is making money for all the ladies in the WNBA. They should all be thrilled. Now, is it fair that Caitlin Clark was the one that kind of broke through? I mean, we could argue that there's other players that have had talent equal to or better than her. Just never got the publicity. Is it race-based? Is it societal? I mean, we could go down all those paths. None of it matters. What matters is that she entered the league and the league's making more money, got more fans, more attention. I'm seeing more WNBA players, not just Caitlin Clark, but and Angel Reese. I'm seeing others. I'm seeing retired WNBA players in ads now. This is incredible what she's done for the league. Yeah, to your point, these other players need just to shut up. It's ridiculous. They're hurting themselves.
I wholeheartedly agree. Babe, you got a comment on basketball, the NBA or the WNBA? Feel free to jump on board. We get to halftime. This podcast is brought to you by Dixie-Line Lumber and Home Centers. Regardless of what the project is around the house, they've got materials, they've got ideas. Dixie-Line has been in business for more than 100 years, John, and they service contractors, but they service people like you and me. Doors, windows, paint jobs, tools, you name it, Dixie-Line's got it.
Yeah, Dixie-Line's got it all. Been in business here in San Diego for over 100 years. Really helped build a lot of San Diego when we started out as like a military community for the Navy bases and the families that lived here. But still extraordinarily active. New lumber yard location up in Dana Point in Orange County, and affiliate offices really throughout America. Dixie-Line's part of Builders First Source. So your go-to place for building materials, lumber, for both contractors, builders, and for homeowners that want to do an upgrade in their kitchen or bathroom. Dixie-Line has got it all.
Yeah, 2 items. You need to go to Dixieline.com or go to Dixie-Line Showroom. And where is that again?
The showroom is the design studio, and it's in Solana Beach, right off of Loma Santa Fe exit off the Highway 5.
Dixie-Line Lumber, build it, fix it. You will enjoy it in 2025. Dixie-Line Lumber. We are at halftime. Just a couple of notes. Everybody who's watching us on this podcast on live stream, we want you to share. Tell everybody in your address book. Hacksaw's back. We're on Mondays and Thursdays at 1:30. I want you to subscribe. When you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you will get the alerts every time we put something up on the YouTube channel, in addition to the podcast, and we do that quite often. Want you to join my Twitter all-star team on X. Just go to Hacksaw 1090 hit the follow button. Want you to not only share and subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Thumbs up helps us a great deal, and give us a 5-star rating on some of the social media platforms. That helps us too. And if you like sports, check my website. It's written. It's there every day. LeeHacksawHamilton.com. I wrote a ton today on March Madness, NFL free agency, news and notes in baseball, what's going on in hockey, you name it, I cover it. We write about it. Follow it. You can do it every morning. It's right there on the internet. First thing every morning, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. John, you ready for the second half? Because now we're going different directions.
We are. And by the way, the 5-star rating is on Apple Podcasts, which is a really important place to leave a review or a 5-star rating. And then when you do click on the thumbs up or the love button or whatever, it helps us because it influences the algorithm in YouTube and Facebook and X. And so it just shows that you are interested in this content, which then helps us reach other sports fans like yourself.
We want you to become partners with us. So give us thumbs up, give us 5 stars. That helps us a great deal. Major League Baseball starts Tuesday morning. Everybody else starts a week from now, but Major League Baseball starts Tuesday morning. John, we're going lots of different directions, a lot of different topics on the table.
Yeah, let's start with the Padres, and I know there's breaking news coming out of camp.
Yeah, the Padres all of a sudden have pitching issues. We never thought this was possible. We thought the Padres had solved everything in terms of the offseason acquisitions and their confidence in some of the guys fighting for the number 5 pitching position. But now the Padres got a problem. Yu Darvish has shoulder fatigue. They will shut him down for maybe this week, but that puts him behind the 8 ball in terms of being ready to throw meaningful innings when the regular season starts. They don't think there's anything structurally wrong, but Yu Darvish, shoulder fatigue, that's an issue. Matt Waldron's going to start the season on the disabled list, on the injured list, oblique injury. Those things are scary. They don't go away. He had rested it. He's tried to throw a bullpen. It flared again. That's bothersome as it relates to him. Johnny Brito shut down completely. Forearm problem that he had second half of last season has resurfaced. He won't be ready. Kyle Hart, who came from Korea, they're trying to push him, but they only got a week left, and he has not built his innings up, which is kind of surprising to me because of the fact he had the entire offseason to be in game shape and condition, but he's a little bit behind the curve there. He'll probably break with the big club, but if he's a starting pitcher, he might be a 3-inning starter at best, so that's got to be a little bit of worry. And they're not talking about, but they should be talking about Robert Suarez, who right now just looks lost in terms of pitch velocity, location, movement. He's had some really bad starts. That Michael King will be the opening day starter on the 27th against the Atlanta Braves, but yet he's got an ERA of 6.23. So the Padres right now, their pitching staff is not where it's going to need to be. You got to walk around with your fingers crossed that this Darvish thing is not something of significant, but the Waldron thing is. Interesting decisions coming. They brought so many guys in to compete for left field, compete for the bench bunch jobs. Gavin Sheets has hit his way back onto this roster. He's got 6 home runs. He's batting .318. He makes it. Connor Joe is hitting in the 330s in spring training. I think he makes it. Terso Ornelas, I think, has to make it because he's out of options. He's hitting about 286. Odd guy is Oscar Gonzalez, the ex-Cleveland Yankee utility outfielder. He's hitting the 360s, but I don't know from a numbers standpoint whether he can make this team. Lockridge, the left fielder, is hitting over 300, just puts the ball in play and plays pretty well. So suddenly the bench bunch looks kind of cool. However, Eggy Rosario is hitting the 180s, and I don't know what they're going to do with him. If they put him on waivers, somebody else might claim him or just let him waive, and if he gets through waivers, send him back to El Paso. Jason Hayward's going to make the team, but he's batting 125. And all 3 catches, none of them are hitting worth a lick right now. The Hayward thing really surprised me. I thought Rosario was ready to make this jump based on the cups of coffee that we saw. And I guess they're going to go with the best glove behind home plate, even though the best glove doesn't have a bat, because none of those 3 catchers are hitting worth a lick. So, John, there's a lot of stuff here with the Padres to sort out. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, we kind of knew this was going to happen because it always happens every spring training. Someone torques some kind of a tendon or something. And it's unfortunately, none of these are really serious. It's not like someone blew out their Tommy John surgery. So if it's going to be the number 5 starter, that the whole Stephen Kolek experiment feels good to me.
So far, so good.
So far, but he's young. He's never done this before, or maybe he did it in the lower minors. I don't know.
He's given up 1 run in 9 innings so far.
That's very encouraging, so I kind of like that. But if it turns out that it's not him and it's all these other guys, Waldron's hurt, you're worried because you're going to have to replace Darvish now in the rotation. At some point they might have to just go with a warm body,
or a bullpen day.
Yeah. Or a bullpen day. There's a Russ Kinnear. They can give him a phone call. He may have to be called up every once in a while. Campusano hit a home run, but it was like in the 8th inning against, I don't know who was pitching. So I don't know if I can believe that, if that's real. But I got to believe Andy Sheets is going to be a DH or definitely
Gavin Sheets.
Excuse me. Gavin Sheets. I get always confused because Andy Sheets played for the Angels and the Padres a long time ago. So Gavin Sheets, I think he's going to make this team, but there's a lot of guys like, I don't know, Lockridge probably won't make it. I don't think Gonzalez makes it. But I would imagine Hayward is a dude, he's like connected to Manny. Didn't he fly out with the team for the San Diego FC opener? So you figure he's got to be on the inside track.
But he's batting 125.
But it's Jason Hayward, so they're going to give him every opportunity.
Okay, you're a Padre fan. We got a week to go before the regular season starts. They got glitches. But there's a lot of other people who got glitches too. But feel free to jump on board Fans Forum, give us an opinion about the Friars. Next team.
Yeah, the Dodgers. Historical weekend. Yeah, they're in East Asia.
No, I will be here tomorrow. I am bringing glazed donuts, jelly donuts. You make sure the coffee is on. Padres, they're going to be watching on TV too. I'm going to be up. I'm going to get him up 3 a.m. 3 a.m. West Coast time. Dodgers, Cubs, National League opener, Tokyo Dome.
That's like 13 hours from now, right?
3 a.m., dude.
Yeah, right. Tomorrow, Tuesday morning.
3 a.m. San Diego time.
T-minus 13 hours as we're live streaming.
A setback for the Dodgers. Mookie Betts, we believe, is on a plane coming home. He has had a viral infection. He's lost 15 pounds. He's been sick as a dog. He got sick the day before they were leaving. They thought it was a minor thing. He just got progressively worse. He was on the practice field twice this weekend in Tokyo, did not play, just trying to take batting practice ground balls. He's got a lot of fatigue. He's lost 15 pounds.
That's a lot.
I was told they were sending him back, and that would give them the rest of this week and into next week to beat this thing down. Meanwhile, Japanese fans have gone crazy. They had over 10,000 at every one of the Dodger practices at the Dome. Then they had 42,000 for the exhibition games against Yomiuri Giants, Hanshin Tigers. Ohtani started the whole week off with a massive 2-run home run. I don't know if you've seen the video. He almost hit it through the roof to the back of the seats in the right center bleachers. Yash Yamamoto, Roki Sasaki are going to start games 1, games 2 versus the Cubs. It's really interesting, the response. It's almost as if this is a Dodger Blue home game. It's almost like nobody's paying any attention to the Cubs, and they've got 2 Japanese players, led by Shoto Imanaga, who's a really good pitcher.
Yeah.
Nobody's paying attention to Cubby baseball. It's all about Showtime and his friends. I was just fascinating to observe. And of course, Dave Roberts comes through a family in the military that served in Okinawa, Japanese family connections. So he has just been tremendous selling Dodger Blue ideology to all baseball fans there. So this is really fun going forward. 3 a.m. Make sure the dog is not barking at me when I knock on the door at 3 a.m. on Tuesday.
Dodgers, Dodgers, Dodgers. Everything's wonderful for the Dodgers. So I think this is fantastic. I mean, for making this a global game, and they're out there and they're shaking up Tokyo, it's like Cheap Trick at Budokan. It's going to be fantastic. So, what's interesting about Japanese baseball, I remember I learned this a long time ago, and it's still interesting to me, is you talk about the Yomiuri Giants. And, we're used to a team name like the San Diego Padres or LA Dodgers. It's a city name, followed by a mascot name, right? Well, Yomiuri in Tokyo, that's a newspaper. So it's each of these teams have like corporate sponsors packed into their name, which I think was fascinating. But at any rate, I saw the clips. I saw everyone going crazy. I guess, Blake Snell got lit up on, gave
up a 3-run home run, had a good start and then got killed.
Yeah. So that's something, but I think this is great. And yeah, the Chicago Cubs, they deserve some love out there. I'll bet you there'll be a decent number of Cubby fans there.
6 of them probably.
Yeah. Something like that.
I mean, the whole stands, everybody's wearing Dodger gear.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's probably like a fashion statement out there because it's so trendy. I mean, it's like pop stars rolling into Tokyo.
So that's all things Dodgers. Feel free, jump on board, Fans Forum. We're going to do our baseball preview about a week from now before the regular season starts for everybody else. You got a comment on Dodger Blue? Let's talk about the Angels because we do talk about everybody here in Southern California.
The injury woes grow.
Yeah, really bad. Do you know they're going to get to opening day and they may not have any of their infielders? Luis Rengifo hit 300 last year. Very good player. He's got an ongoing hamstring problem that's just not healed. They don't even know if he can DH, much less play second base or play in the outfield. Zach Neto, the young shortstop, the rookie phenom from last year, shoulder surgery. He's throwing long distance now, but he's not ready to play. He's not played in an exhibition game. And then the free agent third baseman replacing the battered Anthony Rendon, Yoan Moncada, he's out with a thumb injury. Luckily, he did not fracture it, does not have a torn ligament, but he hasn't hit at all. So, I mean, they might not have their second baseman, shortstop, third baseman to start the season. I will say this, the positive, well, most of their pitching has been really good. Kyle Hendricks has pitched for the Angels like he was prior to the shoulder woes with the Cubs. He's been really strong, and Reed Detmers with a new pitch has had 3 or 4 really good outings. So I think from a starting pitching standpoint, I think the Halos are going to be pretty competitive early on, but I don't know if they got enough bats. Mike Trout stayed healthy. Mike Trout's sitting in the 280s, but it's got to be more than Mike Trout. So Angels just can't get away from the injuries. And if they have to start the season without their second baseman, shortstop, third baseman, wow.
It's a curse, man. There's a number of sports curses. But I'll tell you what, if the Angels had all their guys healthy, they could win that division. Because it's one of the weaker divisions. I mean, Seattle's taken a step back. The Astros have taken a step back.
Texas is no walkover, though. I think you're miscasting.
Well,
that.
Yeah. Okay. You got me there. I forgot about Texas. Yeah. But, and because, the Oakland, my Oakland A's here are not going to be competitive in that division. But the Angels, if Trout was the old Trout, man, I mean, it would be a special team. It really would.
But boy, starting with that many guys who are supposed to be everyday guys hurt, not a good sign. Last baseball topic on the table, because we know off the field there are issues.
Yeah, the Tampa Bay Rays, more stadium controversy.
All right, let's just walk you through where we are. We've talked extensively about the Rays, the hurricane damage, Tropicana Field, the proposal to build a brand new stadium on the other side of the bridge in St. Petersburg. It would have funding from the owner, Stu Sternberg. It would then have, obviously, funding from the city and from the county. They finally had agreed to this is how we're going to do it. And then the hurricanes hit. And the hurricanes destroyed Tropicana Field. Now the Rays had no place to play. And they shopped and they looked as to where they should go. Baseball ran interference for them and convinced the Steinbrenners and the Yankees, you will allow them to use your Class A stadium, Legends Field, Steinbrenner's Field, to play all their home games. So the Rays are moving out there. They're going to play this year in a minor league ballpark that'll be kind of glitzy, but it's outside. It's Tampa. That's heat, humidity, and a lot of rain. They had a lot of rain in the evenings on the Sun Coast. So that's a problem. Then, because of the hurricane damage in Tropicana, St. Petersburg and Pinellas County said, whoa, we don't know that we can fund everything that we had initially agreed to because we got to fix the water projects and infrastructure because of all the hurricane damage in our community. And we might be delayed even in funding the repairs through the insurance company at Tropicana Field. And now suddenly the Rays are just really up in arms. So a week ago, Stuart Sternberg said, I am backing out of the new stadium because instead of a 2-year construction project, it'd be 3. And part of the agreement was the Rays would be on the hook for cost overruns. And they are talking that the Rays contribution would have gone from 600 million to maybe $1 billion because of the year delay. So now there's a problem there. Then baseball exerted pressure. Baseball came back and said, if you're going to renege on this deal in St. Petersburg, there is pressure from other owners that you should sell this team because you can't fund it or won't fund it properly. Sternberg says, I'm going back. We're going to play at Legends Field. And then over the weekend, Sternberg announced a new idea. Let's just renovate Tropicana. While you're doing all the renovation with the new roof, let's do all this other renovation. We'll pay a third of the renovation. St. Pete put money in. Pinellas County put money in. Let's just do $600 million renovations to Tropicana. We'll sign a 10-year lease extension. At this point, a lot of people don't want to do business with Sternberg because in St. Petersburg, it just was not a new dome stadium. It's called the Gas Plant District. It's an entertainment district. It's business offices, $6.5 billion total project, as well as the baseball stadium. Now, St. Petersburg said, we're not going to help you. Going back to Tropicana Field makes no sense. That thing is an absolute disaster with Tampa. Briefly, Colorado Rockies. I knew this was coming. Owners are starting to drop hints that we're going to go to the negotiating table with the union. And Tony Clark sits across the table from us, and we're going to have to get a salary cap. And the latest to stand up and say, I'm in, is Dick Monfort, the cheap owner of the Colorado Rockies, who's going to have one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. And he doesn't spend. And he's got a regional franchise that once upon a time drew $4 million. But he's the latest, put his hand up, said, I'm one of the 6 or 7 that are going to sit at that table, and we're going to demand we have a salary cap in baseball. And then there's the Yankees. This is a disaster in waiting. The Yankees have just not only lost Garrett Cole, the Yankees are down 5 pitchers of the group of 9 or 10 they were going to thought would be there on opening day. They just lost another starter. Clark Schmidt, who was supposed to be the 3rd starter, he's out, maybe on the DL. He's re-injured his shoulder. So that comes on the heels of losing Garrett Cole and then losing Luis Gil, the Rookie of the Year last year, with a lat injury. The Yankees are in such trouble. And by the way, Hal Steinbrenner has indicated our payroll's at 304. We're not going any higher. Brian Cashman has no way to get pitching in here at this date unless he gives away the marquee guys in his farm system. So Yankees, all of a sudden, Yankees are in a real world of hurt. Okay, so I walked you through everything on the Suncoast. Give me a comment on that. Give me a comment on the cheapo owner in Colorado. And are you laughing and just scowling at the Yankees and say, you guys deserve it, or you feel sad for them?
You know, as far as the Yankees go, we were saying the same thing about the Dodgers last year, weren't we? You know, about all these pitching injuries, and they were going to lose their top 5 starters, and they ended up winning the whole darn World Series. So I don't know. I'm not too worried about the Yankees. None of those guys. Garrett Cole's out for the year, but everyone else, it's just kind of a minor setback.
Yeah,
right?
But there's no Soto either.
Yeah,
it's like Aaron Judge against the world.
Oh yeah, no Anthony Rizzo either.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's something. Well, you know, it's the Yankees, and the good news is the American League is a little bit easier than the National League. Dick Monfort is a disgrace. He's one of the worst owners in Major League Baseball. He always whines about this. He was whining, I think, when the Dodgers signed Shohei Ohtani, because it made him look bad into his fans.
Rightfully so.
Yeah. So, you know, that guy is a piece of work. So he hasn't really made, in my opinion, significant investments in that team. I mean, the last one was Chris Bryant, and that went nowhere.
He's healthy right now. They do have a lot of kids, but the problem is they have a lot of kids. They have all these named pitchers. All of them are coming off surgeries. So far, so good, but who knows whether the effective opening day, whether they can stay in the rotation. And it's a regional franchise. They drew $4 million back in the Matt Holliday era. And by the way, Matt Holliday still has not touched home plate against the Padres. But that's a regional franchise that could be a raving success, and this guy won't fund it correctly.
Yeah, and yeah, he's a problem. And by the way, wouldn't you have really mixed feelings if you were one of those elite, you know, prospective pitchers in their organization? Because you don't want to have your career as a pitcher at Coors Field.
What? You're getting psycho about a 7.95 ERA?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so they go to die there. I remember a long time ago, Billy Swift went there, and everyone thought, hey, maybe a sinker will really work or won't work there. You know, it would go flat. Exactly. Because you always think about the home run. You don't think about how it affects the pitching.
But that's the place where, wasn't it Hideo Nomo threw a no-hitter
Yeah.
Coors Field?
Yeah, he did.
How's that possible?
That's ridiculous, but Will Myers went to cycle there. So there's been in the 90s, the Rockies were great. When they had Dante Bichette.
It's a 4 million attendance market, and you got this guy nickel and diming them.
Yeah, he's a problem. So
what do you know about Tampa?
Doesn't this sound like you're like a really blah decision to go back to the original stadium, fix it up a little bit? I mean, that just takes all the pizzazz out of it, and you're still kind of stuck on the other side of the bridge, right?
Exactly.
So I don't know if this really it works. I mean, to me, Tampa, I think, should consider moving that franchise.
Manfred does not want to move it. He thinks the Suncoast should still be a great market. They just don't have great ownership or ownership that's got deep pockets that's willing to do it correctly. It's odd. The product in the field's been good. Their farm systems have developed a lot of really good players. Andrew Friedman, Dodger president, CEO, much hated as he is, he came from Tampa.
Well, wasn't Derek Jeter part of the ownership, or what was the deal there?
Yeah, he was there, and then he got removed. No, that was in Miami.
Oh, that was Miami. You're right.
Okay, which is another shabby ass operation.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm trying to think in my head who the ownership is of Tampa.
Stuart Sternberg.
So, okay, I'm not familiar. I mean, we've been talking about him with the whole stadium thing.
I think,
but he's been the owner for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know if it's been a decade, and they've had success. But now he's got the stadium crisis, and he says, "I can't fund this." Okay, maybe baseball should do an intervention and get somebody else in there.
Well, you don't want to have a festering problem like when the Nationals or the Expos had no home. Now you got the A's with their kind of, globetrotter thing going on.
They have not solved the situation in Tampa. Stay tuned. We'll see what is next. I kind of walk through each of the layers of that storyline. So that's all things baseball as the season gets started. We do have, John's got a huge family room. We just might invite all of our followers. You can come here, knock on the door at 3 a.m. We'll watch the game together. I'm sure some of you guys want to bring beer, but I'm bringing donuts because he's providing the coffee. But anyhow, that's all things baseball. Last topic on the table before we get to Fans Forum.
Yeah, the high-speed sports wire. Always got some good stuff here. Oh, we're kicking it off with NHL news.
National Hockey League. This is interesting. Gary Bettman held a press conference over the weekend. The collective bargaining agreement talks with the union are about to begin. The NHL has determined, because they're letting their players go to the Olympics in 2026, they have a 3-week break. They're going to stop the season so the players can go play for each of their respective countries. Man, that's a long time to be off. It's great for the players because the NHL is such a grind. Bettman, though, did confirm that there is inner circle conversation about expanding the schedule. They're talking about going from 80 to 84 games, which to me that's a staggering amount of games to be played, the wear and tear factor. But the flip side is they would reduce preseason. Mm-hmm. They'd cut the preseason back, start the season a week early. 84-game schedule, though, that's an unbelievable grind. But at the end of the day, it's all about money. Make more money, 84 games. But that's what's being discussed right now. That's going to have to go through the Players Association. I don't know how quickly the players are going to be interested in doing that. Couple of other items. Soccer, they are unbeaten. Holy cow. SDFC. I mean, they are so dazzling with the pregame ceremonies, and when they score a goal, they came back and they played to another tie. They tied the Columbus Crew. They're 2-0-2, unbeaten in 4 games. Each of the games, they have come back and gotten into the games and either won it or forced a tie. Mickey Veras' style of play. These guys have bought into this, push the ball up the pitch, put unbelievable pressure. This is unique. They've gotten stronger and stronger from halftime on in each of the games. They're 2-0-2. That's pretty impressive. Last topic on the table. Formula One, Australian Grand Prix. Rain like hell in Melbourne. Accidents everywhere. 6 different wrecks. Lando Norris from Team McLaren won the Australian Grand Prix. He drove through wrecks. He drove through rain. He drove through the pits. He drove through tire changes. They guessed right on everything that had to happen to get the victory. Max Verstappen chased him all day. Verstappen, of course, is the icon, the legend with Team Red Bull. Couldn't catch him, but he put on a pretty good show. The most amazing thing was the new guy for Team Mercedes, 18-year-old Kimo Antonelli.
Yeah.
He could be like driving down the bottom of the hill on your street. You don't even know who he is.
Yeah.
Kimo Antonelli finished 4th as an 18-year-old in his first race in F1, and he drove on the ragged edge. I saw video of some of his passes in traffic in rain. Couldn't believe it as an 18-year-old. And then there was Sir Lewis Hamilton. He debuted with Ferrari, and they had problems all day. They had communication problems. He had problems as it relates to steering. He had problems as it relates to tire changes. He had problems in the rain. He got very upset at his pit crew for lecturing him during the course of the race. He's not had a lot of cockpit time, and evidently Ferrari's wheels, the wheels on the steering column, have all these computerized things you have to pay attention to and make all these adjustments. And for some reason, Lewis Hamilton had a terrible time making the snap decision, I got to do this to set up the balance, or I got to do this for the wings. He had a terrible time, and they were trying to talk him through it during the course of the race, and he's trying to do 180 miles an hour in the rain, and they're trying to lecture him, you're coming to this second turn, I want you to hit this button. And he finally got on and said, stop talking to me. I can't do this.
Yeah.
He finished 10th.
Yeah.
He finished 10th.
Yeah.
So the debut was really rocky. But Formula One, tell you what, it's grabbed the attention of the people here in the States. This F1 season is going to be fun. So you got comments on that? You're a Hockey Hotline fan. O Canada Network is open. You want to talk soccer? Corner kick us a comment. And if you like the F1, feel free to join us because the Fans Forum chat box is open. We put enough topics on the table here.
Yeah, we put a ton on here. I just got a quick comment or question on each of these. For the NHL thing, you're talking about, the long break in between, to make room for 4 nations, whatever they're going to do. But, professional football, soccer has already figured this out. I mean, they have a gap in time for the Champions League and all those things. So why can't we just follow that model?
Well, the players in soccer are screeching. You're making us play too many games and all these in-season tournaments, etc. There's no downtime and body recovery time. That's a problem in the NHL. They go to an 84-game schedule. How do these players recover?
Well, you tell them you're going to be able to pay them more, and I'm sure they'll sign up for
that.
Okay, and then moving on quickly is San Diego FC, just so awesome. And the way the fans of San Diego have really embraced the team. Love seeing that. Love, again, learning more about the players on our squad and some of the unique subtleties of their game. I just feel a little more educated as a fan as I'm going through this process. But I just love just hearing the chants and the rhythm from all the fans out there. And I think they kind of cleaned up the act.
There was another incident, though, behind the goal.
Oh, no.
And this is after the players were on public address right before the start.
Really?
Urging the fans not to chant a homosexual slur at the goalkeeper from Columbus Crew. And it happened one time. Only one, but there were 3 the home game prior, but one is too many. But I don't know if it's a Mexican heritage thing. I don't understand why Mexican soccer fans, because it happens all the time south of the border, and they can't control it. What I don't understand the mindset of Mexican fan that it's okay to say those things.
Well, I don't think we need to blame all Mexican fans. I think these are the idiot fans are the ones that are doing this.
But it's a massive problem in Mexico in their league.
Yeah. I'm aware of that. I know it's been pervasive, but it's idiotic, and it's a tiny percentage of the fans, probably even in Mexico. But everyone gets bad rap for it. They got to fix it. The F1 thing is interesting. I watched it, and it was in the rain. It was interesting to see the way they swapped the tires, to go from the slicks to the ones with tread. They seem to almost be faster in the pits than NASCAR. I thought it was like instantaneous.
Yep.
But I think goes to all the precision and timing of F1, and to your point about all the flip-flop tabs and everything on the steering wheel.
Yeah, the complexities are so hard, which stuns me because Lewis Hamilton has been such a great driver with Mercedes. He had an entire off season.
Well, she have a training session or something.
Well, but they have limited on-track time because of cost. F1 has put their thumb down on all this off-season research and development. So he had two different practice sessions on 2 different tracks, but he really had a tough time. In fact, he blew his lid in the cockpit during the race about stop talking to me, because they're trying to instruct him. You're coming up here. This is what button you need. And the K1 setup it's very, very complex to try to explain. But for somebody that great to have that many problems with a new team because normally you think all wheels are the same and they're all the dimensions, the buttons are all laid out. But he just had
It's a
terrible
new
time.
team, so it's new engineers, new designers.
Yeah, exactly. So tough time. Hey, this podcast is brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers. You got projects, they got materials. You want ideas, they can be your best friend. Just check the website. Find out what they can do for you at dixieline.com. We do sports talk the way it should be, and part of our format is to let you jump to the front of the line right now with what we call Fans Forum. John, where do you want to start?
Okay, so again, you throw a few bucks at us, you go to the front of the line. Let's go to Matthew. Hey, how has New York sports over the past 25 years ended up so weak? For being the biggest sports market, it underachieves compared to San Francisco, LA, Miami, and Boston.
Well, the Yankees now are not what the Yankees used to be under George Steinbrenner, and that was a long time ago. Boston obviously has undergone an ownership change, and the evil empire, they were the original evil empire, since Larry Lucchino left and then passed away. They're not quite the same. The Mets have gone through ownership situations, and despite Steve Cohen spending the kind of money Steve Cohen has spent, it's not worked out well. And I think they're on the border of just a disastrous season at Citi Field. Yeah, they got Soto, and they got Francisco Lindor, and they got Peter Alonso, but I just don't think they have anywhere near enough pitching. They're down 3 of their 5 starting pitchers already, and we have not thrown the first fastball in a regular season game. So ownership's got a lot to do with it. Bad luck's got a lot to do with it too. And this is a Dodger franchise that has spent and has won, and they got 2 rings and 10 first-place finishes in the last 12 years or so. So I don't know if this is going to be a permanent shift forever, but the Dodgers are doing what the Dodgers are doing with success, and the Yankees are just kind of staggered, and the Mets are not what Steve Cohen wants them to be.
Well, New York sports fans right now are probably really fired up for St. John's.
Yes.
I mean, because they're just doing fantastic in the tournament. But yeah, you look at the Jets and the Giants are awful. The Knicks haven't really been relevant since the early 80s with Patrick Ewing and Pat Riley, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they might add a couple of years here or there. They had the Jeremy Lin years, right? So, yeah. So, and then you go to baseball, and yeah, the Mets and the Yankees have had moments, but it's nothing like it used to be. I mean, because the Knicks back in the early 70s, I mean, they were dominant.
So are you telling me Dodgers are now the universe of baseball?
Well, of course they are. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, they're proving it in Tokyo right now. But yeah, it's also interesting about New York because there's so many colleges there that I'm not sure where they are. Like just last night, I was
none of them play Division I sports per se. Not Manhattan
but,
College, not NYU, etc.
But like Farley University, or is it
Farley Dickinson? That's New Jersey.
Yeah, but it's right across the river.
Yeah.
So it's pretty close to New York City. I was surprised.
Does that register on anybody's radar?
Not really, but yeah.
That's where we are. That's a good question, but a little bit of a changing of the guard, I think. We move on. Next one.
We move on. Okay, let's go here to T-Val. And he says, UCSD class of 1992. Right on. Do the Tritons have a chance against Michigan, and will women get out of the first 4?
We'll find out. We don't know anything about the women's side of the bracket. I mean, it's a play-in game for the Lady Tritons, and they're going to play Southern University out of Louisiana. The basketball team, they have to hit threes. Threes will be the great equalizer because I don't know how they're going to be able to defend inside. Tait-Jones is going to have his hands full, and they got to keep him out of foul trouble. But ball movement, hitting threes, and the Tritons have had a game where they hit 18 threes. I mean, if they could bang a lot of threes, maybe that changes the chemistry of the game. I've always maintained the three-point shot is the great equalizer in college basketball if you don't have bulk and beef, and obviously UCSD does not. But hey, they earned it. 30-4 is so cool. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for those kids to experience this. And for my co-host, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be an asshole till midnight tonight when the offer expires.
Well, all those players came from D2 universities, except one of them came from St. Mary's, but he was kind of a guy at the end of the bench. So this is thrilling, and the great part about it is this kid, Aniwaniwa, I always say his name, Aniwaniwa,
Tait-Jones from Hawaii Hilo Division II.
Division II, originally from New Zealand, but he plays a lot like Miles Bird. He's got the very great court awareness. He's able to make those no-look passes, do some interesting things. He's leads the nation in free throw attempts, which is an interesting statistic. But Hayden Gray on defense is fantastic. Ty McGuy hits the big shots. They got a lot of other role players that are going to be terrific here. I'm just worried about, it's Michigan and how big are these guys? Because when they went up against UC Irvine had that really big center from Germany, and he was like a tree trunk out there. If we end up having to go up against someone from Michigan like that, it's going to be a tough go.
By the way, Irvine's in the NIT.
They are.
They got chosen last night.
Good for them.
There's hardly anybody in the NIT you recognize.
What about Boise State?
No.
Really? No, it was a letdown for them, I guess. I don't know.
Just amazing. Okay, babe, we'll follow this going forward. This guy's going to be barking until midnight tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be terrific. All right, let's keep going. And we'll go here to Alan. He goes, "Hi, Saw. Will the Miami Dolphins ever be relevant? Been a long time since they've been good. I think it's the curse of Tom Garfinkel."
Well, they got Tua, and if they keep Tua healthy, and they've got wide receivers, that's a big issue. But they seem to churn a lot of that roster almost on an annual basis, and they let guys go. They import other guys, etc. Got to keep Tua standing, and I think that's the biggest piece of the equation in Miami. He gets hurt, then they become a woebegone franchise.
When I first was a kid, follow football, the 49ers were horrible, but the Dolphins were the king of the hill.
Oh, the Dan Marino era.
No, I'm going back to the early 70s when they had the undefeated season with Bob Greasy and Paul Warfield and Larry Zonka and Jim Kick and Mercury Morris. That was a hell of a team back then.
That was 50 years ago.
That was Garo Yepremian was on that team.
That was all things Don Shula.
Yeah, but he's right. I mean, we haven't really – the Dolphins had that big playoff game against the Chargers when you were an announcer. Mm-hmm. And so there have been a few moments, but they haven't had a dominant run in a long time.
No, but Tua is really good. They just got to keep Tua on the field. But they've worked really hard, I think, to add people around them. But the injuries change the whole scope of your team. Okay, move on.
Moving on. Okay, I want to go back up here to Steve Zach Botsford. He says, "What do you think of the Kings? Do they have a chance going into the final months of the regular season? Also, who would you choose as Rookie of the Year?"
I'll tell you, Darcy Kemper has played a hell of a lot better in goal than I thought he was humanly going to be able to play. When they got him back in the offseason, I said, you're bringing him back, you cut him loose, let him go. It's a pretty good team. They've not scored with the explosiveness that I thought they would the second half of the season. But they got Drew Doughty completely back. Brant Clark has played really, really well. Mikey Anderson is kind of an unsung guy that you trust to play 25, 28 minutes a night. I think they're good. I was a little bit stunned that they didn't do something to get another goal scorer, but they didn't want to take on any more money, and they didn't want to give up the future. They had a lot of young kids. Byfield's hot. I think Quentin Byfield, the number one pick, who they force-fed, he might be 22 right now. He scored 5 goals in 5 games. So they can just continue this push going forward. But please understand this. Everything in the Western Conference, I think, is going to wind up going through Winnipeg. And that's going to be hard because the Winnipeg Jets are really good, really deep, with maybe the best goaltender in the NHL. But I think it's been a pretty good season. They got to find a way to get through the first round. I don't know if Edmonton is going to be there right in front of them again, because the Oilers have beaten them 3 straight years in the first round. But it's a good Kings team, but they got to get over this hurdle. They got to go deeper into the playoffs, and they got to score goals. That's the one thing has been so inconsistent the second half of the season.
So are the Oilers and the Jets natural rivals?
Yeah, and Calgary's kind of in a mixture of that. Everybody in Western Canada hates everybody else.
Okay, Vancouver. Yeah, because I'm just kind of trying to figure out how they line up, because obviously, the Toronto and Montreal, that's a classic rivalry.
Sure.
So, but it's still a long drive to go from like Winnipeg to up to.
Well, Edmonton, Calgary are just hours away on the freeway. Winnipeg's a little bit different thing, and obviously Vancouver's a couple provinces over.
Yeah, so it's a lot different. I'm just kind of learning again more about hockey, but the Kings should make the playoffs. You think?
Oh yeah,
they'll make it. And do you think the Ducks are still on track to finish above 500?
They're scuffling right now. They've had a couple back-to-back setbacks, which was kind of stunning because they had fought so hard to get to the 500 mark. and now they've had a couple of setbacks the last couple of games. So they're not going to make the playoffs. I would say right now, biggest storyline is Edmonton. Do they trust this goaltender? That's a huge issue because Skinner has not had a year this year like he had last year when it looked like he had grown into the job. That's there. Calgary's got a couple of goal scorers led by Jonathan Huberdeau. Calgary's got a really young goaltender, Dustin Wolf. Can Calgary's younger team learn to play in the postseason? That's a big challenge. Vancouver is a mishmash of personalities. You never know what you're going to get. Scoring goals has been really hard for Vancouver, and they got some guys making mega bucks that are not the Warriors that I thought they would be. So you got all those guys wrapped around the guys who got 45 or 46 wins, the Winnipeg Jets, who are deep, a lot of different goal scorers, really strong on defense. Connor Hellebuck, best goalkeeper in the NHL. So like I say, everything that happens in the Western Conference, be it the Kings or anybody else, has to go through Winnipeg. Not going to be easy.
Not going to be easy.
Not at all. Okay, we move on.
We move on. Okay, this is an interesting one. WNBA talk from James, and he says Clark is hating by the other WNBA players because she's white and straight. Simple as that.
That's unfair. That's unethical. I know there's a lot of, we call them divas in pro sports. Mm-hmm. Most all of them have their males sent to the wide receiver position in the NFL. And obviously there's a lot of issues with personas in the NBA who I think have degraded the game. I don't understand why, if you're saying it's just the African-American players in the WNBA, why would they do this? Do they not understand how great this player is and how this great person who kind of dragged women's college basketball to another level and has now delivered the goods exactly in the WNBA? Why? Why's it got to be black versus white? Why don't you just appreciate the greatness of the player? I guarantee you, if something happened to Caitlin Clark, she blew out a knee, season gone, their numbers would plunge. It wouldn't be the same league emotionally. What? I hope it's not race. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm too naive to think that it shouldn't be that way in 2025. At least that's my opinion.
Well, it's my opinion. It's jealousy, and because they think that, you know, some of the players, they deserve the attention because they are the superstar that's been, you know, a 15-year veteran in the league, you know, 10-year all-star, some of these players. So I think it's jealousy. And then is there, you know, are there other societal issues like, you know, in this case, race or sexual orientation kind of in there a bit? Yeah, it is. It's there, but I think it's on a very low end degree. The bottom line is that we just got to get over it and just focus on the fact that we're making more money now. The WNBA, the pie is bigger. And when the pie is bigger, there's more to go around. So get on board, ladies.
I agree wholeheartedly. Good question. Thanks for joining us, James.
Okay. This is probably from a Dodger fan, from Jay. He goes, Padres winning 70 games this year.
Ooh. We're going to do our baseball preview in about a week. I don't know if it'll be next Monday or maybe next Thursday. We will do a full-scale division-by-division break. 70 games. Now, if you're telling me something catastrophic is going to happen, like a couple of these pitchers break down, yeah, then I think they'd have a problem. But if these guys are these guys, and the guys making big money all have pretty decent typical seasons, Manny, Fernando, Bogarts bounces back, 70 wins? No, I can't see 70 and 92. Is he on a haters line?
That's what it is. That's exactly what this is.
Okay.
This is Dodger Nation showing the dark side, you know, and they love piling on. This is what this is. It's a poke. It's a jab. It's bait to try to get us to react. I'll tell you what, though, the Padres, I think, are going to finish above 500, hopefully in the high 80s, low 90s in terms of win count. I think that's a realistic number. I think they can be a wild card team, but you know, you're going to have one of these three teams winning the East. It's going to be either the Mets, the Phillies, or the Braves. And I don't know who's going to win the Central, maybe the Cubs. And then you're going to have the Dodgers and then either the Padres or the Diamondbacks. So really we're competing with the Diamondbacks, the Braves, the Phillies, and the Mets this year. I mean, those are the wild card contenders, unless there's a surprise team. I think the Padres can be in the middle of that pack and therefore become a playoff team.
So we should cancel the show a week from Thursday because you just did your baseball preview.
Did I? Oh, that's the tease. I'm not following up on the tease.
No, Padres win 70, please.
Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah, I projected last year because I went back and read one of the columns I wrote. 'Cause I get bagged on all the time. Padre lover, Padre homer, Padre hater, blah, 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 blah. I projected they're going to win 88, and that was at the upper limit. They won 93, and they went right to the bitter end, and they should have gone to the World Series and didn't get it done.
So close.
Oh,
so close.
Don't flash back with me. I get a stomach ache thinking about that.
It's going to be a great year. I can't wait. And this is a little bit of a tangent topic. This is from Adam, and he says, Padres plus San Diego College B-ball. Man, I love San Diego.
Who would have ever thought we'd ever have a day in our lifetime in which basketball in San Diego was on everybody's radar and everybody had an opinion? Because when I first came here in the late 80s to do sports talk, there was no basketball. Nobody cared. The Clippers had left. And prior to that, the Rockets had vacated, and we had an ABA team that was here for 12 minutes, the Conquistadors. Nobody paid attention to San Diego State. And now we got 4 teams in March Madness. Go think about that.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And because were you here when Smokey Gaines was the coach?
No, that was prior to my arrival, but he had that nice little run.
Yeah, there was moments there. And I guess that was at the Michael Cage era,
Michael Cage, Michael Kennedy era. Exactly.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. And then you got into it was like Fred Trinkle, I think was one of the
Brandenburg era blew up in their face, and Trinkle came, and that was a disaster. They had a guy from somewhere, it might have been Stanford, Tony Fuller came, and that was a disaster. He was a nice gentleman.
Yeah.
Just didn't work out, and then all of a sudden Steve Fisher came after having been with the Sacramento Kings, having been exiled from Michigan as an innocent victim of the Fab Five scandal, and look what he did, and now he handed it off to Dutcher. It's been tremendous.
I remember back then I was disappointed because the alternative to Fisher was Tarkanian. Yeah. And I was thinking, okay, each of them have a checkered past, or so I thought.
No.
So I thought.
Fisher didn't have a checkered past.
That's the thing, is that we learned a lot more about Fisher. Fisher is not just simply a high character guy. He is a friggin' angel from heaven.
Dude ought to be in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, he's a magnificent person. But back then, I didn't really know a whole lot about him. It was the Fab Five, all that. And I figured Tark, the Shark, man, he had that great run with UNLV multiple times, including winning the championship in the 90s.
Full of scandals, too.
Full of scandals, yeah. So it worked out perfect. But that is an example of build it and they will come, man. They built that Cox Arena then. That got Fisher to come. And then now look where we are.
Exactly. So we got Padre baseball. Obviously, what basketball has become, although there was a hole in my heart and a lot of people's heart over what the Spanos family did to San Diego Charger tradition and legacy. Okay, we move on.
Okay, let's go here to Hector. And he goes, Lee, all these owners calling for a salary cap do know that the players, to even consider this farce, they will need to open their books, right?
Yeah, there's not going to be a salary cap. The luxury tax has got teeth in it. That kind of acts, Hector, and your point's well taken. They're not going to open their books. No, they're not. What has to happen, you've heard me talk about this extensively, and Tony Clark needs to come to the realization that he represents not just Juan Soto, but everybody on a baseball roster. We need to have a floor to spending, which means everybody's getting all this revenue sharing money, and they do have a problem with the TV situation, the TV contracts, the lost revenue from the regional networks. But everybody's getting all this revenue share. There's got to be a floor to spending. And I swear to you, Hector, if everybody had to spend $120 million, and if you can't afford it, then get the hell out, sell your club to somebody else who can afford it. But if everybody spent $120 million, there'd be so many good players that would go to Miami, go to Tampa, go to Pittsburgh, etc., because they had to spend $120 million. And let the Yankees and the Mets and the Dodgers spend their $300 million and pay the luxury tax. We'll never get a cap. To me, the competitive balance of baseball is going to be triggered by the floor to spending. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but you can end up in an upside down situation, right? Where you're committed to having a big payroll, and maybe you made a commitment like, Artie Moreno did, and it didn't work out. And then suddenly your team stinks and you can't draw enough people, and you're going to be losing money. I mean, I could see that scenario playing out.
True, but you got to make the right decisions with the right people. So Artie Moreno made mistakes on free agency. He was impulsive. He hired some bad people to run his operation, bad drafts and all that. But that doesn't mean you can't get out of that water. I mean, you can fix your franchise in a couple years span if you spend properly. And I'm not saying sign every free agent, but if you spend properly in the farm system with good baseball people, that's the big issue. Is he's had some real substandard decision makers that kind of put him into this hole, and he had all his bad luck, and he was so bloody impulsive himself.
Yeah, it's just not gone right for him at all. But I want to talk about here, opening the books. Do any leagues or teams do that? I mean, they're all private corporations.
Green Bay Packers are a publicly owned thing. They do open their books, but nobody else really does. No, not at all. And they're all making money.
Right. Because I think the thing is that if they could show that they're making a profit, which would be made the truth, good for the ownership and the investors, but the fans think they should spend every nickel and penny on payroll. They think it's a community asset. They want it to be nonprofit.
Well, it's going to be a community asset because you're asking me, the fan, to buy box seats along the first base line right behind the dugout. So it is a community investment.
Do they even still call them box seats?
In some places they do, yes. And some of us are old school, but that means experience with a lot of knowledge.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. We move on. Thanks, Hector.
Okay, and Matt had another one. He goes, even the Yanks have by their own standards.
Well, true. I mean, Yankee fans are in for a shock. I mean, the health of your stars is what puts you in a pennant race. And if you get guys hurt, especially pitching, you're in trouble. And you just think of where the Yankees are right now. 3 of their 5 starters are out. And Garrett Cole is gone for at least a year, if not longer. And you obviously, you're scrambling like hell right now. They have a total of 5 pitchers on the disabled list right now, including hot prospects that they thought might be part of the rotation somewhere over the course of the season. So they're reeling, and they don't have Juan Soto. It's just not the same franchise right now. So, but that can happen anywhere.
What do you think about the new policy that they could grow a beard?
I thought the Steinbrenner rule was really outmoded and outdated. Now it's been removed. But that's not going to make them better because they still got 5 pitchers on the disabled list with or without beards.
I just thought it's a weird rule.
Yeah.
But it is a private company. He can set the terms and conditions. But it always struck me as really odd.
I concur with you. I'm surprised nobody barked about it. But they're getting paid so much money and wanted to play in New York because it's a baseball financial capital of the planet. And he play for Yankee tradition and a house that Ruth built and all that. And so, okay.
We think the Players Union would have objected to it at some point, right?
They probably did, but nothing ever came of it. So
yeah, all right.
Steinbrenner was Steinbrenner.
Okay. Want to give a quick thank you to Bob for throwing out a $1.99 sticker. Thank you, Bob. And he has a question or a comment. He says, Boise is in the new Crown tournament in Vegas, Fox property, and will pay NIL dollars.
That's good. That's great. I mean, that's a 3rd-tier tournament. I'm having enough problems with the NIT. Once upon a time, that was a real special thing. When Steve Fisher first built San Diego State, and I spent a lot of time out there, when they finally got good, they were 0-14 his first year. I think they were 5-23 his first year, had no players, just got smoked. And anyhow, 3 years later, they had the chance to go to the NIT. And I said, guys, this is really cool. You get the chance to go to Madison Square Garden and play. And the Garden is the Mecca. Now, I grew up on the East Coast, so I know what the Garden meant to basketball fans with so much heritage. And that was a marquee tournament with a lot of good teams. Now, this is before the NCAA went to 68. Prior to that, it was way back. But it's not the same tournament now, and it's run by the NCAA. And if you look at the names of the teams in the NIT this week, they're all like mid-major, lower echelon teams. I think there's 3 of the teams have 500 or sub 500 records. There's just not enough good teams to have that tournament. And then you got the Vegas tournament, which is the 3rd level below the NIT, which obviously is below March Madness. So awful lot of games. They don't mean very much. It's great that those kids have a chance to go play, but it's not a big thing.
I think the landscape has changed because it used to be that everyone would love to go to a postseason tournament.
Yep.
And then, they created those other ones. There's like 2 others that are almost like pay to play.
Mm-hmm.
I think CBI is one name of one of them. But if you're a program that's never been to the postseason, you might be willing to do that.
Sure.
and pay to play. But by the way, I think the other team that deserves some love, by the way, is Point Loma Nazarene. They Division II, both their men and women's team got into the playoffs.
Right. Well, they'll play and they'll play at their level, and they won't play before big crowds, and they'll play in small gyms and all that. But that's who they are, and that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah. Here we go. Okay.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, let's go here to David. And actually, he had a comment, kind of a follow-up on the San Diego FC. He says their record is 2-2-0. Football put the draws after wins and before losses.
I concur with you, but I look at it as 2-0-2 because they've never been beaten. I'm sorry, it's old school. Wins, losses, ties. Unbeaten in 4. That's pretty impressive.
That's how the NFL does their standings.
Sure.
The ties are the third column. But it does make sense that the ties would be the middle column because you still get a point for a tie. So again, the lingo, all the new words and ways of describing the game, it's different in soccer.
If I start talking to you about the standings in the National Hockey League, I will utterly confuse you and you will be so lost. I'll need a search dog to find you. If I start talking about the NHL standings, wins, losses, overtime losses, shootout losses, that is all part of the
expanded
NHL
card.
Yeah, you'd be lost. We won't go there.
And by the way, did you find it interesting that MLS doesn't do any kind of an overtime? They don't do any kind of a shootout.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, they would in the playoffs. But what's the NHL? What do they do in regular season ties? They just let it finish in a tie?
No. It'd be the 5-minute overtime, and then it goes to shootout. There are no ties.
But there was a time when they were ties.
Oh yeah, exactly. Way back in the 50s, 60s, and the 70s. But they got creatively better, and then they went to the overtime, and then they changed the overtime and made it 3-on-3 in overtime, not 5-on-5, which opens up ice space and it terrorizes goaltenders that somebody's going to fall down or make a mistake and I'm going to be left naked.
It's like the ghost runner on second base.
Exactly. So
which, by the way, isn't a ghost runner. It's a real runner.
They have evolved the thing.
Okay.
David, idea, but they're 2-0-2 as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. They're undefeated, right?
That's right.
Undefeated. I think we got to go with that. Let's go here to John. He goes, whoever gets the Rays might have some fun baseball to watch for a while. They've done a good job of developing talent. If they move to, say, Nashville, get a good regional TV package and enlist all the Music City talent, they could be a destination.
There's no doubt somebody would be out there to be willing to buy them. The thing is, then Rob Manfred would be vacating the Suncoast. He does not want to do that. But Tampa St. Pete has not supported it. Maybe it's just because of the demographic. Everybody lives in Tampa St. Pete. There's an older demographic and doesn't want to get on the highway and go to games. Their TV ratings are through the roof. Everybody watches Rays baseball. Everybody in the Suncoast, they're from the Northeast. If they're not native from Tampa, St. Pete, they're from the Northeast. They're all baseball fans, but they're down there and maybe they don't want to drive. And, I think that the demographic for Rays baseball is a hell of a lot older than most people realize.
Yeah, I think the community around Tampa is like Del Boca Vista from Seinfeld, where all the folks go down there to retire. But the Buccaneers have no trouble selling out.
But that's the NFL.
But then the Orlando Magic is just right up the road from Tampa. How do they do on attendance? Probably pretty good.
When they've been pretty good, they've had some good seasons, and they've got some really good young kids this year. They had Shaq way back in the day, and Penny Hardaway. But again, that's the only show in town. That's up on the northeast quadrant, in the north central part of the state.
Yeah, but it's like right off the freeway. I think it's the 4 freeway, if I recall. It's not too far away, but there's not a whole lot of, if you go north of Tampa, you get up near Panama Beach and that kind of area.
Nothing around the Panhandle. No.
There's not much going on up there. So I don't know. It just makes me wonder if they have read the market wrong in Tampa, because it's true. There's a lot of baseball fans, but not necessarily the ones that are going to come out like on Petco. We get all the young people and it's a big party.
Product has been pretty good in different stretches of time with different ownership. They have gone to the playoffs, have gone to the World Series. But right now, they got a stadium situation. Nashville is out there. That could be a nice Mid-South regional franchise. Charlotte is out there, wants baseball. The Triad in North Carolina, it's got a lot of people living there. Obviously, Portland's trying to come up with this idea to build a kind of a dome stadium on the Willamette River. That's a smaller market. It's a Pacific Northwest market. So there are people out there, probably ownership out there, but Rob Manfred does not want to vacate the Suncoast.
Interesting. Well, all right. Well, let's keep on moving. I'll go here to Greg. And he goes, John, put on a Seattle Mariners hat on that head.
Just give it to him, Greg. John's feeling his oats right now till midnight tonight. He cannot be a punk after 12 midnight tonight, but I'm letting him have his way because of UCSD.
UCSD made it, man. It's a huge historical thing. If you were to talk to people that have been alumni from UCSD, most of them don't even follow sports because they're scientists and biologists and doing research. And the fact that we are now in the tournament is mind friggin' blowing. But yeah, this is my moment. I'm going to live it. And maybe they get on a run. That'd be terrific. But I'll say this, back in the 70s, I was an A's fan too. They had a nice run then. Good times.
I never would have thought you and I'd be talking about UCSD on this podcast as a lead story. That being said, make sure you check your email because I think the Alumni Association is going to tap you for a big-time donation.
Yeah, you know they will. Yeah, you probably get rung up all the time from Ohio.
Oh, I get all the stuff from Ohio University. I give to like 4 different foundations at my alma mater. And when they asked me to come back and speak, I said, yes, I'll come back and speak to the College of Communications. And they brought me in. Then they brought Peter King, who just retired from Sports Illustrated. He is an Ohio U alum. So I spoke and he spoke. It was great. And I come home and I got like 6 different more emails from other unique foundations at Ohio U. So support the alma mater. Okay, we move on.
Good for you, Hacksaw. You're a good alum. Here's Ted with a follow-up on Tampa. He goes, excuse me, I picked the wrong from Ted. It's this one. Too much baseball because of spring training in Tampa.
Could be.
That's an interesting take.
Yeah, I mean, obviously half of Major League Baseball holds the grapefruit circuit, and it's a big thing. Again, we got a new stadium in Miami, but a bad owner in Miami. Got an old bad stadium, and a lot of people think a bad owner in Tampa. They all kind of go hand in hand. I don't know what the solution is. But blowing up this idea about when they had all the funding put in place and then the hurricanes occurred and then Sternberg walked away from the Tampa situation, that's a big setback, I think, for the Rays, a big setback for Manfred and what he's trying to solve with baseball because he thinks he's solved the crisis with those guys, the Athletics. Enjoy the summer in Sacramento, won't you?
It's going to be brutal.
Yeah.
And it's going to be 100 degrees out there. Air's going to be thick. It's going to be tough. David has an answer about the Rays. And he goes, people in Florida are poor. That's why they have to live in that hellhole state. They don't want to go to Rays games.
There's no income tax.
Yeah.
In Florida. Or no, I should say no sales tax.
No, it's no income tax.
Yeah. There's a lot of money in Florida, but the demographic, the people that live in Tampa, St. Pete, Sarasota, Bradenton, that's a much older demographic than I think modern day communities, other places. I don't have a solution to Tampa right now. They thought they had a solution. It's kind of blown up in their face.
Well, there's a lot going on societally with, red state, blue state, and people leaving California and going to Texas and going to Florida. And there's a lot of that going on too. So the demographics are shifting. So I think you talk about Tampa as a lot like an older community. That might have been true 10 years ago. It may be different now.
You know what's really different? Here, we're doing this podcast. We're into our 3rd year and they haven't asked us to leave yet. What's my heritage? Besides being a loudmouth talk show host, what's my heritage?
You're a Long Island boy.
Well, I'm talking about professionally.
Oh, yeah. As a sports journalist, going back to Akron, going back to New York. Yeah.
Trying to connect the dots here. Where did I come from? What did I do before I met you? I was a voice of a couple of NFL teams.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
I'm looking at the listings of everybody on this podcast in its 3rd year. We have not had a football contributor yet. And we're in the middle of freaking free agency.
No,
where are the NFL fans?
Well, we're talking a little bit about we're talking about Tampa. I mentioned the Buccaneers.
No, I'm talking about those people.
No, it's interesting is you were asking me about how all of our videos were doing on all the NFL comments from the last podcast. And the baseball team still right now gets more views, more commentary, and a lot of it's just Dodger Padres smack talk.
That's okay.
And people love that. But, right now I think free agency, there were some big names that moved, but it's not nearly the same level of hype as the draft. When we get to the draft next month, I think we're going to be a lot more NFL talk, and then definitely when the season starts.
I will definitely hold you to that. But it just kind of stuns me, the aftermath of NFL free agency. All-time record, 236 free agents is signed as of this morning, 6 or 7 major trades. What the Chargers did overnight was really impressive. What the Rams have accomplished with very little cap space, impressive. We have not had an NFL call yet in fans forum. Now, maybe it's going to come. And I find it hard to believe because, A, I'm a big baseball guy and I love everything. I covered a ton of hockey and all that. But my heritage is I came from the NFL. I would have thought there'd be a lot more people just firing salvos, talking about their NFL teams, what they did not do.
You know, it's interesting about you specifically.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go.
Self-critique.
Because you have like this NFL persona that's fully legit. I mean, you're on NFL Films. I mean, you're the real deal as an NFL broadcaster. But you were the broadcaster, you said, of the Phoenix Giants, which was a AAA baseball team,
for San Francisco.
And then you've been, the
broadcast the Utica Blue Sox in the New York Penn League back in the day when I was a kid.
Yeah. So you've done that. Then you've also done hockey, obviously.
You're right. I am a Renaissance man.
You are. I mean, what about basketball? Have you broadcast basketball?
I did college basketball, a whole bunch of it.
Okay.
Okay.
What else have you done? Track and field?
I broadcast that.
You did?
I broadcast a marathon, which was kind of unique and very different.
Really?
I broadcast golf.
No, I didn't know this.
Yeah, different events and stuff I did back in the day in smaller markets. So
good for you.
I've done everything.
Yeah, you are like Leonardo da Vinci.
I didn't cut my ear off and move to the south of France. Oh, who did that?
That was Van Gogh.
Van Gogh. I'm not Van Gogh yet. I'm looking for NFL fans to join us on Fans Forum. It does kind of surprise me coming out of free agency, because I'll tell you, when we did Sports Talk Radio, you could not get on that talk show because it was clogged from here to the highway interchange with football fans who wanted to call.
Yeah, but when we had a team, it was different.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so many football fans in San Diego have abandoned the sport. They just written it off.
Okay, let's move on. I'm going to stop whining. I'm just expressing a truism. I'm a little bit surprised, but go ahead, John. Where do you want to go?
Okay, let's go here let's talk Chargers here. And this is with social media. This is from Izonka. He goes, got more consistent but less explosive at running back. Huge improvement at right guard. Jackson versus Fulton is a wash. Really, the loss of Poona Ford is the only significant decline, which I think they address early in the draft.
Probably true on virtually all categories. Somebody was just banging us at it. What the hell are you talking about? The Chargers had a lousy year. Well, when we did the podcast last Thursday, they had a lot of player erosion. They had not made moves on people outside of Najee Harris. Well, then obviously overnight Friday, they went out and they got the huge guard from the Philadelphia Eagles, who I think is a pretty good run blocker, but he's not very good. I've seen his metrics in pass blocking, but they went out and they wound up in getting him to come on board. In the bigger picture, it's a different team. I love the acquisition of Najee Harris. I think the acquisition of the right guard from Philadelphia helps them a great deal in terms of run blocking. I don't like where they are at center unless they're going to move Zion Johnson into center, because the center they re-signed to a 2-year contract. Bozeman's one of the lowest rated centers in all the National Football League. They have not re-signed J.K. Dobbins, which kind of surprises me. That might be arguing about dollars and cents. But if they could pair Najee Harris with J.K. Dobbins, and they think they fixed the right guard situation, and if they can fix the center situation in terms of blocking, then maybe they're a more complete offensive football team. Now, Mike Williams is fine at age 30, but boy, there's a big injury history. I really like Josh Palmer, who up until this past year had done a lot of things catching balls down the field. They really need some more wide receiver help. Now, maybe they will address it a little bit with their picks in the first and second round. So I'd say right now, as we talk on a bonus Monday, they're a lot better than they were Thursday when we talked to you. So, but obviously getting a guard plus Najee Harris, I think, are nice acquisitions.
Yeah, I think it was weird because we had done that video talking about that and made a splash, and the minute we posted the video, they started to make a splash.
Yeah,
and this guard for the Eagles, was he one of the starters for Philly?
Yeah, all year. He had resurrected his career. He was a high #1 draft pick with the New York Jets, who bombed. He was miserable. Played the University of Louisville, massive mountain of a man, all kinds of weight problems, couldn't move his feet. Failed miserably for 3 years. And they just let him walk. They never picked up the option. He was gone. Philadelphia brought him in, and then because of injuries, Philadelphia had to play him at guard. But he was surrounded by superstars. Lane Johnson and Cam Jurgens, their center, and what they got on the left side of that offensive line. So he was, I'm not going to say weakest link, but he's probably the lowest rated of the 5 offensive linemen that the Eagles had. But he had a really, really good season. So they're going to put him at right guard where he's protected. So if they can get another center, and maybe it is Zion Johnson moving from left guard to center, I think they'll probably be better. But they still need consistency at wide receiver. They still need another burner at wide receiver. We'll see where it goes.
Okay, let's keep moving. Social media and speaking about the Eagles, here's a comment that came in. And this is from Johnny Cage. It's about your free agent losers. I guess you had the Eagles on that list. And he says, how can you say the Eagles are losers when Howie has a proven track record of drafting well?
Hey, this is the same host that talked about one of the unsung heroes in building Super Bowl teams, Howie Roseman, and what he's done. But I was surprised that they let or did not try harder to keep either Milton Williams inside a defensive tackle or Josh Sweet. I mean, they lost them lickety-split. You know, one guy went to New England. Tell you, Williams is going to play a lot for the Patriots. The other one went to Arizona, and he's going to play a lot there. I was a little surprised there, and then they got rid of Darius Slay on the back end. So they're down 3 or 4 integral parts of what made that defense really good. So I was just surprised. I knew they were going to have some cap issues as we got to this offseason, and they gave Saquon Barkley more money than God. But it's a big issue because they let some really good guys just walk out the door, and those guys got snatched up within the first 3 hours of free agency. So when you got good talent, this is Hacksaw's philosophy in the NFL. You got good talent, better keep that good talent. And if you're going to let all that talent go, make sure you got guys to replace them. And right now they got some holes on that roster from guys that contributed, played very, very well. It's not a condemnation of the Eagles. I just thought at that point in time, I didn't understand why they didn't try harder to keep Milton Williams and at least Josh Sweet.
I think I'm going to take that Hacksaw philosophy and we're going to etch it into stone right next to your statue. How's that sound?
Put it on my headstone.
Yeah. You know, and I think the word loser, I think, can be interpreted a little bit differently. Like they lost big players, right? But it doesn't mean they're a loser team. I mean, you know, or it's a loser GM.
Those 2 general managers that got their teams to the Super Bowl, those 2 of the brightest light player personnel guys that I've seen in modern day football. And last I checked, Johnny Cage, we talked extensively about the smart people in the Eagles front office. So they're not losers. But on this day when they let those guys go, that's a big issue to me.
Okay. All right, we're talking a lot of NFL right now. This is good. We've got a lot more of this in social media. Let's talk here about the Raiders. And this is from Sean in Sin City. He goes, definitely don't agree. Added 3 players that maybe are even better for less money. Coaches said from the start what they were going to get. Hustlers. All 3 new players run and play the game. All 3 we lost, missed tackles all season long.
Well, I thought they were making a lot of progress, and I really thought Pete Carroll was going to be the magnet to the silver and black. It hasn't really happened. You know, they have unbelievable faith in Geno Smith. They're going to have to pay Geno Smith because he's on the last year of his contract, and he wanted mega money, and that's why Seattle let him go. He asked for $40 million. I'd never pay Geno Smith $40 million. I'm not even sure I'd pay Geno Smith $30 million. But that being said, when they lost 4 or 5 off the back 7 on defense, and these are young guys that they force-fed that were getting progressively better and better, now they got holes. They got holes everywhere. And by the way, the free agent window's closed. I mean, you could strut around the street in the silver and black and say, we got 10 draft picks and we got $107 million in cap space. Well, now you got holes everywhere on the defensive side of the football, not up front, not with Max Crosby and the guys, but that back 7, they got holes everywhere, and there's nowhere to replace these guys with. You say, well, we'll go get them in the draft. But draft means young guys learning on the job, getting force-fed, making mistakes, breaking down. I just don't understand the methodology because at one point I thought the Pete Carroll hiring was the most fabulous hiring of probably anybody around the NFL. Boy, fans are just chomping at the bit. Nobody agrees with anything I say ever.
Well, John, you always critique what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, this is like the first big thing that's gone down in the news with the Raiders since they got Pete Carroll. Right. And you don't like the free agent selections. Oh, you're busting out the notes.
My chart.
This is unbelievable. Show this to the audience again. It's just the way you keep track of everything.
I am a smart guy. I have a system. These are the free agent acquisitions of every team in the National Football League since free agency started the middle of last week. So therefore, I will turn to the Raider page. Okay. So this guy here is going to critique what I had to say. So the Raiders got Jeremy Chin, decent safety. Washington, Pro Bowler? Nah. The Raiders got Eric Stokes, once upon a time, starting cornerback Green Bay. Difference maker now? Nah. Lonnie Johnson, a safety, sitting on the bench. Elander Roberts, linebacker at Pittsburgh, sitting on the bench. Alex Kappa, offensive guard. Cincinnati didn't want to keep him, let him go. Raheem Mostert, tough guy running back, 49ers, Miami. He's been around the block. He's okay. Can he stay healthy? So outside of Jeremy Shin and Raheem Mostert, Raider Nation, that's all they got. And you lost 4 to 5 guys off your back 7 on defense. And you got Geno Smith as your quarterback, who's okay, but he's not, I don't think he's a Super Bowl quarterback. So how are you better today than you were prior to the start of free agency with Pete Carroll there and Tom Brady's influence? Or am I wrong for critiquing all things silver and black?
Well, you're always in grudge mode with those guys. Here's another Raider comment, and this one's from Skate FM. He says, the Seahawks did very well last year with Geno Smith as their quarterback. They missed the playoffs because they lost some important games. The Raiders are going to be all right. I mean, Geno Smith's an upgrade at quarterback. You got to give that.
He's better than the gunslinger, yes.
Yeah.
But he had 20 touchdowns. He had 15 picks. He had 50 sacks. And he's not playing in a better situation in Las Vegas, because do they have a running back right now outside of Mostert? No.
Ashton Genty.
Well, maybe. Well, again, when that day comes up, we'll talk about that acquisition if that is the acquisition. But it's just it's not a complete team right now. And he's got 1 year to go. He doesn't have, I don't think they got great wide receivers outside of Jacoby Myers. There's just so many holes on the Raiders side of the football. And again, Seattle said no, walk. And they got Darnold. Here's the angle. Nobody's talked about this. I just found this out. Sam Darnold signed that 3-year big money contract. The Seahawks can walk away from the contract after the first year.
Ooh, that's good for the Seahawks.
He gets big guaranteed money the first year. But if it doesn't work out, if Sam Darnold reverts to what Sam Darnold used to be, they might walk away from him. It's kind of weird. But I just dug that story up. I just found out about that about midday today before I was going on. I said, wow.
That's got to be such a downer for Sam Darnold, because he came out of the gate a hot prospect. He was terrible to start his career. He resurrected it with the Vikings. They thought he was going to make $1 million gazillion, and now everyone has this big cast of doubt because of those last 2 games.
Yeah, exactly. And now he signs a big contract where he gets a lot of money up front first year, but he doesn't have a great year. There might not be a second year in Seattle. Seattle could be a mess.
But is that an upgrade for the Seahawks? I mean, Darnold, Geno Smith, they're kind of the same guy, aren't they?
I don't know. Darnold had a mystical year. Geno Smith did throw for 4,000, but threw a lot of turnovers, a lot of sacks. That's why they're going to play the game in. That's why we're going to be talking about it.
Okay. Well, I have faith in Tom Brady. I want to see them make the turn there. Okay, let's switch around here. We'll go to a little Rams talk. And this is from Conrad Soul. And he said, Lee Hacksaw always tells the cold, hard truth, whether you like it or not, regarding your team. And it's nice we got Lee's blessings. Hope the Rams make a run.
Pretty good. Sean McVay, he's quite a salesman. I mean, he helped resurrect Matthew Stafford's career, gave him guidance. They put a lot of good players around him. That's a very good young offensive line. And then went on and got a starting center because the center slot had been battered by injury. So I think the Rams right now are in just a great position. Hated to see Cooper Kupp go, but in all honesty, Devontae Adams is better than Cooper Kupp, and he's got more big play abilities down the field. And they force-fed all those young kids on defense. And John, we talked about this last summer. We talked about it into the fall when we did our preview. I said, you just watch. You watch what Jared Verse becomes, what Brandon Fisk becomes. And they played them all, and they played really well. So Rams, for a team that only had this much cap space, the Rams had a hell of an offseason. They're done in terms of acquisitions per se, but McVay's quite a salesman. He convinced Stafford to stay. Stafford could have gotten more money to go to the Giants, but then he would have been played in a miserable situation. Convinced Stafford to stay, and he never let Devontae Adams get on the open market. Adams was released early. He could have signed with anybody. They brought him into L.A. to meet. He never let him get on the plane to go home until he signed. Great salesman.
I hate to say this as a Niner fan, but I'm just more and more impressed with the Rams. I mean, especially with McVay, and the work and the general manager. I mean, they just got smart guys running that operation. And, even last season, you thought they were going to go in the tank. They started out, 1-4?
Transition.
But then they lit it up the rest of the year. I mean, McVay is like a magic man.
And I'm not denouncing San Francisco. They've had good runs, great runs, and now they kind of have to take a step back because of the cap, and they're down 11 players. It's obviously not going to be the same franchise that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have to work for, but these guys built something really, really good along the way in San Francisco, and now it's a bit of a time to step back because they had all these big money contracts. You can't keep everybody.
That's a division that the Rams, I think, can win easily if they just play to their expectation.
Exactly. Okay, we move on. Let's do one more here, social media, before we put a lid on it.
Okay. Yeah, Sniffer's having his say here as well. Let's talk more Charger talk. And this is from Lenny. And he goes, the Chargers are wasting Herbert by not giving him a dominant receiver. They should have signed Higgins, not Williams.
Well, but Higgins' price tag was unbelievable. Higgins just signed in Cincinnati overnight. He and Jamar Chase simultaneously signed the deal. They got the massive payday. I want to say Higgins is going to make $30 million, and Jamar Chase now becomes the all-time highest paid player in the league outside of being a quarterback. He just signed for $41 million overnight in Cincinnati. So the Chargers were never in the running to sign T. Higgins, even though they may have dropped some hints they would have liked to take him. But we'll see what they do in the draft. You can go get speed guys, and then you got to bring them along, but they're still short, I think, in the pass reception department, and they're going to have to address that now in the draft because virtually everybody, all the free agents, are gone off the board.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they are wasting Herbert's, glory years here. I mean, how old is he?
Well, he's headed to what, a sixth year, seventh year?
So he's in his late 20s. He's probably right around close enough up 30 here. I mean, these are primetime years. Your late 20s are when you're athletically at the top of your game.
But understand this. Going to get Mikael Becton from Philadelphia is huge. Getting Najee Harris is huge. Different type of tough guy running back. They bring back J.K. Dobbins. That's solid. Now, if you fix the problem at center, and maybe it's going to be Zion Johnson, and if you fix the problem at center, and then you can concentrate on going to get another wide receiver to put out there that's going to make defenses cringe because this guy's going deep while Ladd McConkey's doing everything he does. I don't know where Quentin Johnston is on the curve. They obviously kept him. They didn't cut him loose. They still see all this great physical talent, but we've yet to find any consistency. So they still got work to be done at the skill position department. But and the other thing is their defense took a hit. Nobody's talked about this. They lost Poona Ford to the Rams. And then overnight on the weekend, they lost the other big defensive tackle. Is it Fox? He went to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Morgan Fox. That's two biggies. They signed two young guys who've never been starters really per se in the NFL, and they cut loose Joey Bosa. So they got some holes there that they got to address on the defensive side.
Remember Jamal Williams?
Sure.
Yeah, wasn't he the big defensive tackle for the Chargers back then?
And University of Houston was a really good player for 8 or 9 years, but the wear and tear factor. But he had big wide body guy.
Yeah, he was. I remember you talked about him as a wide body. Now, it's interesting. You're saying that they need a new center. And, we know, like, the responsibilities of those offensive linemen, I think it's interesting because you think of the tackles, the blind side, and they're protecting the quarterback.
Slater and Alt.
And then, I would think of the guards as the ones that are open up holes for the running back. The center obviously hikes the ball, but it's really more like a third guard.
But he's got to be a big physical guy to be able to hold up in protection, et cetera. And Bozeman was undersized. He was a weak link. Zion Johnson, the left guard, did not have a great season. That's why they're thinking maybe of moving him in. They do have Trey Pipkins. Maybe they could move him to the left guard. He's a big wide body guy, but he's kind of deficient. That's why Becton wound up there. So we're not done yet. Roster's not set. We'll just continue to analyze it as it occurs. But he's right. They don't have enough yet around Justin Herbert in terms of the skill area. They're building, I think, the front wall correctly.
Yeah, well, we're running out of time, I think.
And we're running out of time, too. By the way, the dog that was barking, we are the only podcast in America with a mascot.
Yes.
Sniffer is a beagle that lays here and counsels us. He is the executive producer, Sniffer the beagle. So when you hear barking, that's what the hell's going on in John's studio. Hey, this podcast is brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you. You got projects, they got materials. You want ideas, they will help you. Dixie Line Lumber, build it, fix it. We guarantee you will enjoy it in 2025. John, here comes March Madness. We got a play-in Aztec basketball game on Tuesday in Dayton. We got the first round of the tournament, actually starts on Thursday. We got that. We got spring training news and notes. May have some more deals in the NFL. We got NBA, hockey, a ton of stuff that we will be covering all back here Thursday at 1:30 Pacific.
And that'll be right before UCSD plays Michigan, because I think that's going to be on 7 o'clock Pacific, I think, on Thursday. I mean, this whole week, I may not sleep. I mean, this is going to be fantastic.
Good. Have yourself a great day. We'll yell at you on Thursday.
Right on. Looking forward to it.
And thank you so very much. Always great to have you part of this. Whether you agree or disagree with me or him, does not matter. Glad you're part of Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.